Why do you see things others don't? Why do you sense patterns, hidden meanings, and unspoken truths, yet struggle to explain them in words? Why does your mind feel like both a sanctuary and a battlefield? If you've ever wondered why deep thought feels like both a blessing and a curse, you're not alone. Some people carry within them a depth that makes ordinary life feel strange, shallow, almost unbearable. They live in two worlds at once, the visible world of daily life and an invisible world of symbols, shadows, and unrelenting questions. Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychological minds of the 20th century, believed that deep thinkers are not simply intelligent, they are explorers of the unconscious. But that gift comes at a cost: isolation, overthinking, even despair. And yet, if you understand this psychology, you can transform your suffering into strength, your loneliness into clarity. Stay with this video, because if you skip it, you risk staying trapped in a cycle you can't explain, haunted by thoughts you don't understand. Before you can grasp the psychology of deep thinkers, you must first understand the man who gave them a voice. Carl Gustav Jung was not a conventional scientist. He was a rebel of the psyche, a thinker who walked away from the rigid path of Freud to carve his own. Where others saw surface behaviors, Jung saw oceans. Where others measured symptoms, he mapped symbols. Born in Switzerland in 1875, Jung spent his life obsessed with a single question: what truly shapes a human being? He believed the answer wasn't just in your conscious choices, but in the vast hidden continent beneath them, the unconscious. To Jung, the unconscious wasn't merely a storehouse of repressed memories. It was alive, dynamic, structured by archetypes, timeless patterns of thought and experience that shape the way you see the world. This is why Jung spoke of the self, the shadow, the sage, the seeker. These weren't abstract theories. They were the invisible scripts directing your life. Whether you realize it or not, you are playing roles far older than you, roles etched into humanity itself. Jung also gave us the language of introversion and extroversion. To him, deep thinkers were not just introverts hiding from noise. They were individuals who turned their gaze inward, listening to whispers the external world could never hear. Their thoughts did not merely analyze, they excavated, they uncovered, they tore down appearances to reveal what lies beneath. But Jung wasn't only fascinated by thought, he was haunted by the spiritual hunger of humankind. He believed that without self-knowledge, without integrating the unconscious, you remain fractured, half of you living, half of you buried. And it is often the deep thinkers who feel this fracture most sharply, carrying both the pain and the potential of self-discovery. So when we talk about the psychology of deep thinkers, we are not just exploring quirks of personality. We are stepping into Jung's lifelong project, the quest to unite the known and unknown parts of yourself, to walk the razor's edge between light and shadow. And now, with this foundation, you're ready to enter the heart of Jung's vision, the secret world of the deep thinker's mind. One, the inner world of deep thinkers. Step into your own mind for a moment, not the chatter on the surface, not the to-do lists, but the quiet depth underneath, the place where questions echo louder than answers. That is the true habitat of a deep thinker. Carl Jung described this orientation as introversion, not shyness, not social awkwardness, but a turning inward of psychic energy. While most people pour their attention outward onto events, trends, chatter, your focus sinks inward into symbols, memories, possibilities. You don't just live life, you dissect it, peel it open, and ask, what does it mean? This is why you sometimes feel detached from the flow of ordinary conversation. While others laugh about trivialities, your mind is already mapping patterns, asking, what lies beneath their words? What does this reveal about who they are? To many, it seems like you are overthinking, but in Jung's eyes, you are seeing the hidden architecture of reality. Yet this gift comes with tension. Jung noted that deep thinkers often wrestle between thought and action. Your mind can craft entire worlds of possibility, but translating them into the messy, imperfect reality of action feels unbearable. So you retreat further into thought, refining, perfecting, imagining. And with each layer, the outer world feels a little less real, a little more shallow. Think about it. How many times have you stopped yourself from acting because the idea wasn't yet complete? How many opportunities slipped because you were still searching for the perfect insight? This is the paradox of the deep thinker. You see more than most, but that very vision can paralyze you. Jung believed this wasn't a flaw, but a stage. The inward gaze is necessary because it allows you to encounter the unconscious directly. But if you remain there, cut off from expression, your thoughts curdle into frustration. Depth without embodiment becomes a burden. So the inner world of a deep thinker is both a sanctuary and a prison. It shelters you from the noise of the shallow world, but it can also lock you away in endless loops of reflection. This is the starting point of Jung's psychology of deep thinkers. You live in a reality most people never enter. But the question that follows, the dangerous, necessary question, is this. What happens when you meet the darker half of that inner world? Shadow work, the darkness within. If the inner world is your sanctuary, the shadow is its hidden chamber, the room you avoid opening, the presence you pretend isn't there. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the part of you that carries what you reject, deny, or fear. You see, every time you tell yourself, I'm not angry, when you are, or I'm not selfish, when you crave recognition, or I'm not weak, when you're breaking inside, you're feeding your shadow. It grows quietly, accumulating the pieces of you refuse to face. And for deep thinkers who examine everything, this shadow looms even larger. Why? Because the deeper your awareness, the sharper the conflict. You don't just experience jealousy, you analyze it. You don't just feel despair, you trace it to its philosophical roots. But awareness without integration doesn't dissolve the darkness, it magnifies it. Look at Nietzsche, who wrestled so ferociously with his own depths that his brilliance burned him alive. Or Dostoevsky, whose stories of guilt and redemption were born from wrestling with his shadow in the depths of prison and poverty. These men didn't just study darkness, they lived it, and out of it they gave humanity visions that still shake us. But here's the paradox. Your shadow is not your enemy. Jung believed it is the source of vitality, creativity, even wisdom, if you dare to confront it. Ignoring it leaves you fractured, haunted by unexplained moods and compulsions. Meeting it, however, transforms it. Anger becomes power, fear becomes courage, loneliness becomes insight. This is why Jung insisted that shadow work is not optional. Without it, your depth curdles into bitterness, your insight collapses into cynicism. With it, your inner world begins to balance. You stop splitting yourself into the person you show and the person you hide. You become whole. But make no mistake, this confrontation isn't comfortable. When you peer into your shadow, you will see impulses you despise, memories you buried, truths you tried to deny. It feels like staring into an abyss. And yet, Jung's warning was clear. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. So the question for you is this. Will you keep polishing the mask of the thinker, admired for your insights but tormented by your hidden wars? Or will you step into the shadows, risking everything, yet finding, perhaps for the first time, the raw material of your true strength? Because only when you face the darkness within can you begin to understand the full psychology of a deep thinker. And only then can you see the symbols that rise out of the shadows, pointing towards something greater. Archetypes. Symbols. If the shadow is the darkness you fear, then archetypes are the shapes that rise out of that darkness, ancient patterns that guide your thoughts, dreams, and behaviors, whether you realize it or not. Jung called them archetypes, universal images embedded deep in the human psyche, the silent architects of meaning. For most people, these patterns remain invisible, but as a deep thinker, you cannot escape them. You see connections others miss. You notice that myths, films, and even your own dreams repeat the same figures: the wise mentor, the wanderer, the outcast. They are not coincidences. They are symbols, recurring across time and culture, whispering truths older than civilization. Jung identified many archetypes, but three haunt deep thinkers most. The sage, who searches for wisdom at any cost. The seeker, restless, never satisfied with surface answers. And the outsider, condemned to live at the margins because the crowd cannot understand the questions that burn inside. Think about your own life. Haven't you felt like the seeker, devouring knowledge yet never feeling complete? Or the outsider, present in a room yet miles away in thought, sensing truths others laugh off? These roles are not accidents. They are expressions of archetypes, currents flowing beneath your individuality. But here lies the paradox. Archetypes give your life depth, yet they also alienate you. While others are content with simple explanations, you see layers upon layers. A conversation about weather becomes for you a meditation on time, impermanence, mortality. You are not trying to be difficult. You are living under the spell of archetypal patterns that magnify meaning in everything. Jung believed this is why deep thinkers often feel misunderstood. It is not that you are broken. It is that you are tuned to frequencies others don't hear. Where most people see events, you see symbols. Where they see coincidence, you see destiny weaving a thread. And symbols to Jung were the language of the unconscious. Dreams, myths, religious rituals, all encoded truths too deep for words. For the deep thinker, these symbols are not just curiosities, they are lifelines, guiding you through the maze of the psyche. But there is a cost. To carry symbols is to carry weight. To live through archetypes is to live at a distance from the ordinary. You are shaped by stories bigger than yourself, but those same stories can trap you in cycles of searching, questioning, and wandering without end. So you must ask, are you the master of these patterns or their captive? Do you use the archetypes to illuminate your path, or do you let them pull you deeper into labyrinths of thought from which few ever return? Because only by recognizing the symbols shaping you can you step into the next truth, that deep awareness is both a gift and a curse. The gift-curse of awareness. Awareness is the crown of the deep thinker, and also the chain that binds you. To see more, to notice what others ignore, to pierce the illusions of ordinary life. This feels like a gift. But Jung warned that every gift of consciousness carries with it a shadow. The more you see, the more you suffer. Think about it. When you walk through life, you don't just notice faces. You sense the sadness behind the smile, the unspoken resentment in a word, the patterns of power and fear in every interaction. Where others enjoy the comfort of ignorance, you see the cracks in the mask, and once you see them, you can't unsee them. This is why so many deep thinkers wrestle with overthinking. You're not obsessing over details because you want to. It's because your mind refuses to rest until it has traced every thread to its root. But clarity rarely arrives. Instead, thoughts loop endlessly, sharpening your awareness but dulling your peace. And then comes the loneliness. To hold such awareness is to live apart. Conversations feel shallow, routines feel absurd, small talk becomes unbearable. You crave depth, yet the world seems built on surfaces. Jung knew this isolation well. He called it the burden of individuation, the price you pay for becoming more conscious than those around you. But awareness also holds extraordinary power. It allows you to see connections where others see fragments. It gives you the ability to anticipate outcomes, to understand motives, to decode symbols that others miss entirely. Many of history's greatest innovations, works of art and philosophies were born from this very tension, when awareness cut so deep that it had to be expressed or it would destroy the thinker. Yet here lies the razor's edge, the line between genius and madness. Jung saw it often. A mind that sees too much, feels too much, can collapse under its own weight. Nietzsche wrote with fire until it consumed him. Van Gogh painted visions no one else could see, but they drove him into despair. Awareness without balance becomes not insight, but torment. So the psychology of deep thinkers demands a paradoxical truth. Your awareness is both your weapon and your wound. It can elevate you to brilliance or pull you into despair. The difference lies in whether you learn to carry it or whether you let it carry you. And this is where Jung's final lesson comes in. He did not believe you were meant to drown in your depth, nor to abandon it. Instead, he spoke of a path, the hardest yet most necessary path for every deep thinker, the path of individuation, where you learn to unite your awareness, your shadow, and your symbols into a whole self. And that is where we go next. 5. The path of individuation. Carl Jung believed that every deep thinker, every restless soul, is ultimately walking one path, the path of individuation. This is not just psychology. It's not about fixing yourself or chasing happiness. It's about becoming who you truly are. Most people never walk this path. They live in masks, playing roles given to them by family, culture, or society. They pursue goals that aren't really theirs, follow beliefs they never questioned, and spend their lives avoiding the discomfort of self-discovery. Jung would say, these people live half asleep, never meeting their own soul. But deep thinkers don't have this option. Their awareness won't allow it. Once you've glimpsed the depths of your shadow, once you've heard the whisper of your inner symbols, you can't go back to shallow living. You are forced to walk forward, toward individuation. So what is individuation? It is the process of uniting all the fragments of yourself, your conscious mind, your unconscious impulses, your shadow, your light, into one whole. It means stepping out of borrowed identities and daring to live your own truth, no matter how uncomfortable it may be. But this journey is anything but easy. Individuation is not about becoming perfect. In fact, it's about confronting your imperfections so deeply that they no longer control you. It means looking at your shadow, your envy, anger, insecurity, and instead of denying it, integrating it. Not to excuse it, but to own it, so it doesn't rule you in secret. Think of it like this. Your shadow is a wild animal. Deny it, and it lurks in the dark, waiting to pounce when you're weakest. Accept it, and it becomes your ally, lending you strength and instinct you didn't know you had. Jung would say, the goal is not to be good, but to be whole. This is why individuation often feels like a spiritual path. It's not just therapy, it's transformation. It requires honesty so brutal that most people run from it. You must admit to yourself not just who you are, but who you pretend to be. And then, with time and courage, you begin to live without the mask. Every deep thinker feels this pull. You've likely felt it too, the sense that you are meant for something beyond surface-level existence, that there is a you buried beneath layers of expectation and fear. Individuation is the excavation of that self. But here's the paradox. Individuation is never finished. You don't arrive at some final, perfect version of yourself. Instead, it is a lifelong dialogue between your conscious life and your unconscious depths. Jung compared it to walking toward the horizon. You never reach it, but the act of walking transforms you. And in this process lies the great reward. While awareness can feel like a curse, individuation teaches you how to carry it with strength. It transforms isolation into purpose, overthinking into insight, and suffering into wisdom. Individuation is not escape. It is engagement. It is saying yes to the full spectrum of life, light and shadow, joy and pain, surface and depth. And in that yes, a deep thinker finds something rarer than happiness. They find meaning. And that meaning changes everything. 6. Why deep thinkers struggle in modern society. If Carl Jung could see the world you live in today, he would recognize one truth instantly. It is not a world designed for deep thinkers. In fact, it is a world that constantly punishes depth and rewards distraction. Think about it. You live in an age of endless noise, scrolling feeds, breaking news, constant notifications. Every second, a flood of shallow content is fighting for your attention. And attention is the very lifeblood of a deep thinker. Where you focus determines how deeply you can reflect. But when your focus is under siege, your inner world becomes fragmented. Jung warned that modern man risks becoming a hollow shell, lost in collective noise, disconnected from the soul. And today you can see it everywhere. People numbing themselves with constant entertainment, living in a blur of instant gratification, terrified of silence. But silence is exactly where depth begins. For a deep thinker, this environment feels suffocating. There's also the problem of pace. Modern society demands speed, faster work, faster decisions, faster responses. but depth requires slowness. Reflection cannot be rushed. Ideas need incubation, like seeds under the soil. Jung himself spent years exploring dreams, myths, and symbols, territories that can't be accessed with a quick glance. Yet today, slow thought is treated as inefficiency, and deep thinkers are pressured to just get to the point. Then there's the culture of appearances. Social media thrives on images, curated identities, and masks. Jung would call this the persona, the face you show the world. But here's the danger. When society becomes obsessed with personas, the authentic self is buried deeper and deeper. Deep thinkers sense this lie immediately. They see through the performance, and the result is alienation. You feel surrounded by masks but rarely meet real faces. And let's not forget, overstimulation. A deep thinker's mind is already full of complexity. Layered thoughts, questions, archetypes, possibilities. Add to that the bombardment of digital noise and the result is overwhelm. It's no wonder many deep thinkers report anxiety, insomnia, or creative burnout. The modern world doesn't just misunderstand them, it actively exhausts them. But the deepest wound of all is loneliness. Jung often wrote that the journey inward isolates you because few people dare to face their own depth. In today's culture of small talk, hot takes, and surface-level friendships, a deep thinker can feel invisible. You long for conversations that matter, for dialogues about meaning, truth, soul. But too often, what you get is chatter about trends, gossip, or distractions. That hunger for real connection remains unsatisfied. Yet Jung would not despair. He would say, "The very fact that deep thinkers feel out of place is proof that their role is essential. Every society needs those who question, who withdraw, who reflect. Without them, culture collapses into shallowness." The struggle of the deep thinker in modern society is not just personal, it is archetypal. You are carrying the burden of seeing what others cannot, in a world that resists being seen. So what can you do? Jung's answer would be clear. Guard your inner life. Create space for silence. Limit the masks you wear. Seek out fellow deep souls, even if they are rare. And most importantly, stay committed to individuation no matter how noisy the world becomes. Because while modern society may be hostile to depth, it also desperately needs it. In an age of endless distraction, the deep thinker is not just an outsider. You are a guide, a mirror, and sometimes a lifeline. So what does all of this mean for you, the deep thinker? Let's distill Jung's wisdom into a few unforgettable truths. First, being a deep thinker is both a gift and a burden. Your ability to see patterns, confront the shadow, and wrestle with life's biggest questions gives you insight others can't reach. But it also means loneliness, inner conflict, and the constant temptation to drown in your own thoughts. Depth opens doors, but it also exposes wounds. Second, Jung shows you that the unconscious is the key. Everything you repress, your fears, your shadow, your unrealized potential, will shape your destiny if left unseen. As he famously wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Deep thinking at its core is about making that unconscious visible. Third, depth requires courage. The world will tempt you with speed, noise, and shallow distractions. But if you can resist, if you can slow down, embrace silence, and walk the path of individuation, you gain something priceless, the chance to become fully yourself. And finally, remember this. Deep thinking isn't about escaping life. It's about diving so far into it that you touch the roots others never see. That journey may be difficult. It may even feel unbearable at times. But it's the path toward wholeness. Depth is not a curse, it is your calling. Now it's your turn. Look inward for a moment. Do you see yourself in what we've explored? Do you recognize the restless curiosity, the quiet tension, the unrelenting desire to understand more than the surface allows? If so, know this. You are not alone, and your depth is not a flaw. It is your power. Take a moment to reflect. Which struggle resonated with you most? The shadow you resist, the symbols you cannot ignore, The loneliness that comes with awareness? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your experience matters, and connecting with others who think like you can be the first step toward embracing your own depth. If this video sparked insight or shifted the way you see yourself, hit like, share it with someone who seeks depth, and subscribe for more explorations into psychology, philosophy, and the human mind. Remember this: the world needs deep thinkers, not to conform, not to entertain, but to illuminate. But first, deep thinkers must understand themselves. Step into your depth, embrace your shadow, and let your awareness guide you to wholeness.